Hi everyone, it's Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Animal Sanctuary. This is going to be the introduction for this week's Serpentes Sunday video. Today's actually Tuesday, February 7th, 2022, and I'm here with Mew Are, who the last 2 nights in a row has wanted out of his enclosure. And the video that I'm making for Serpentes Sunday is actually not about him. He's one of our royals at the ranch, but since he was out and everybody always loves to see snakes, I thought that he could be with me in this video because I'm not really sure where he wants to go or what he wants to do. He came out and just started roaming around the room. But I'm not exactly comfortable with him free roaming because he's still a little bit smaller and royals tend to want to get on the floor and then they disappear. And so I'm probably going to put him on an elevated activity station here in a minute or in an exercise tent when we're done with this. But this week's Serpentes Sunday video, which will air on Sunday, February 12th, 2023, is going to be about snakes with neurologic conditions or neurologic issues, and not specifically about the neurologic conditions or issues or how to specifically care for them health-wise. But I've had a request to go over how I set up an enclosure so that it is safe for a snake with neurological issues, while at the same time allowing them options for exercise and stimulation as they can handle it. So we actually have a neurologic snake here, not this one, but a jaguar carpet python that has severe neurologic disease. Her name is Sunshower, and I'm going to go over with you just what her enclosure looks like and why I've chosen to set her enclosure up in the specific way that I have, and how managing her in this way allows her to do well and helps her manage her neurologic issues while at the same time still getting exercise when she chooses and having just the right amount of stimulation, but not overstimulation, which can obviously trigger neurologic issues. So I hope you enjoy this. And if you have more questions about it after, please feel free to message me or comment below. Before we take a look at her enclosure, this is Sunshower. She was hatched on July 15th, 2017, and she arrived here on June 28th, 2018. I got her from Cheetah Platt, but she was actually produced by Brad Unsworth. At that time, I was unaware of what the jaguar carpet python was or what the jaguar gene was, and that it 100% of the time had neurologic issues associated with it. I got this animal because she was supposed to be very, very friendly, and I was told would likely be a good outreach animal. And when she first arrived at almost a year old, she was very good with people. She was highly intelligent. She learned to self-shift very quickly. At that time, I wasn't target training yet. I was shift training. So I was training the snakes to automatically shift out of their habitats into a shift container and then back into their habitats. And she was actually my first snake to ever learn that and do that 100% on her own. And it wasn't until she was almost 2 years old that she started to display obvious neurologic issues. The first thing that I noticed that indicated something was wrong is that she started missing her food strikes and having some difficulty finding her food when she was eating. And then her body became unstable and she began to fall more and be more and more unsteady as she climbs. She loved to climb and she had a pretty much totally arboreal habitat, but she started falling more and becoming more unsteady. She started turning her body upside down, and when that happened, she would be unable to right herself or correct herself. So when you turn a snake upside down, they should be able to right themselves and put their belly back on the ground with their back facing the sky. And she was unable to do that. And she would sometimes turn and contort her body in really strange ways when she was trying to move around and climb. Then she started having uncontrollable body muscle spasms and muscle contortions where her whole body would writhe and contort, and she could not control that. And it got so severe that I actually was going to euthanize her. And then the pandemic happened literally the week I was going to make the appointment for the euthanasia. So the pandemic actually saved her life because my veterinarian closed down for several weeks and I couldn't get her in. And during that time, miraculously, the body spasms and the uncontrollable muscle contorting stopped. And she seemed calm and she seemed comfortable. And I thought, this is a good thing. However, with this particular snake, it appears that her neurologic symptoms wax and wane and change. So that symptom went away, but then she couldn't swallow. Neurologic dysphagia is something that can happen in people too, and it's normally when the swallowing reflex is lost and an organism's unable to swallow. So peristalsis was not happening in the esophagus. She couldn't move things down her esophagus. And she quit striking at food. She quit trying to eat whatsoever. And when I would try to assist feed her or force feed her, she could not swallow. Things would not go down her throat, but she still had retroperistalsis going on, which means she could push things back up. So her esophagus was working only in one direction, and that was in the direction to regurgitate things, which was not good. She started losing weight, and at this point she was going to starve to death unless something changed. And so I made the decision to start tube feeding her. And that's what you're seeing in this video, one of the tube feeding sessions. So a stomach tube is passed down the esophagus to the stomach. She's given a liquid diet. It's critical care carnivore. It's designed for obligate carnivores, and it comes in a powder that you mix with water, and then it can be administered directly into the animal's stomach through a tube. I fed her this way for over a year because she was unable to eat on her own or swallow. And she did just fine with this. I don't think she liked it, but her body condition stayed stable. She gained a little weight. She didn't lose any weight. And she was able to maintain her body condition by being tube fed. The muscle spasms did not start back up again, so she seemed comfortable and relaxed in her enclosure. And as you see here, she is relatively stable and able to do some climbing. And it was at this point that I moved her from a terrestrial enclosure that I had her in temporarily when the muscle spasms got so bad into a semi-arboreal enclosure so that she was able to get up off the ground again and do some climbing like she always liked to do. And that is this enclosure right here. This is her current enclosure. It's 4 feet long. It is 18 inches high and 16 inches deep. It is set up so that she can still be off the ground and do some climbing, but still be safe if she becomes unsteady. Now she's eating right now. So something that happened, I said I tube fed her for over a year. And at one point after that, I was feeding other snakes. She got into an ambush position and she really looked like she would strike at food if I offered. And I offered and she struck at food and she swallowed it on her own. And so just as some of her other symptoms waxed and waned and changed, she began to be able to swallow again, and now she is eating. Her enclosure is set up with lots of flat things so that if she falls off of these PVC perches, she lands on something flat, and that her shelves have sides on them so that when she is up on those shelves, she can't fall out of them. And there is a net there to catch her if she does fall from the shelves or off of some of the PVC perches. Her hide is very big and open inside. It's very simple. It's got a big opening and it's just open and flat inside. Her water dish is open and flat, and her humid hide is open and flat. She has one small log at the back of her enclosure to give her the sensation of being on a tree branch if she wants that. But I don't have anything in here that she could get trapped underneath of. If she were to lose her coordination and get underneath something, I wouldn't want her to get trapped. So there's nothing in there she can get under and get trapped in. And then all of these things that she's able to climb on are relatively flat or have sides or would catch her if she falls. And the enclosure is not super tall, so she wouldn't be falling that far. It also sits only about 3 inches off the ground. So if she is coming out of the enclosure on her own, or if I have the doors open and she were to fall out, she is just going to fall about 3 inches right onto the carpet, and she isn't going to go far. She's been in this enclosure now, I would say, for 2 years, and it's working really, really well for her. We keep her enclosure furnishings the same, and we keep it arranged the same. We don't change it up. We want her to have routine, and we want her to have a quiet environment that is always the same. Her enrichment is on those rare occasions when she chooses to come out and explore exercise spaces that she is familiar with from times before her neurologic symptoms got bad. Snakes that have these genetic neurological disorders, when they become overstimulated, the neurologic symptoms become worse. So we try to keep her free from fear, anxiety, and distress, and free from overstimulation, or her neurologic issues get really bad. And sometimes that does happen after she finishes eating. She becomes aroused, and as you could probably see in some of the video footage when she was trying to swallow, she flipped upside down and she seemed unsteady. And sometimes she is worse than that. That's a branch we have in the back of her enclosure just in case she wants to interact with that. But all of these furnishings are always in these same spots, in the same places. We don't change them up, because we want to keep her in a quiet, routine environment where she is not overstimulated, because if that happens, the neurologic symptoms become worse. Everybody, thanks for watching. I hope that you found that useful, and that if you are managing a snake with neurological issues, that it helped you at least give you some ideas as to how you might better manage setup for their enclosure, so that it's not a deprived environment, but it's also not overstimulating and it's safe for them. I'm going to put Mew RA in this exercise tent. And until next time, everybody, please remember to always be kind and love your animals. And I do want to remind you that Mew RA does not have neurologic issues. He just joined me in this video, in fact, because he's perfectly 100% healthy and has no issues. Please feel free to contact me if you have a snake with neurologic issues and you need advice, but I encourage you to also make sure that you are maintaining a relationship with your veterinarian and that your snake is getting routine care and routine checks, especially if they have neurologic issues. Sunshower, of course, is under the care of a veterinarian. She gets routine wellness exams and blood work, not very frequently because we don't want to cause her undue stress. And everything we do with her at home is at the advice of our veterinarian. Our veterinarian, however, cannot explain why her neurologic symptoms seem to change their presentation and why for over a year she couldn't swallow and now she can. Some of what's going on with Sunshower remains a mystery to me and our veterinarian.